right, what is up and welcome to MMALatestNews.com's first episode of the follow-up with me, Dan Tom, analyst and contributing writer for MMA Latest. In this podcast, we're just going to be essentially breaking down the technical action of post-UFC events in reference to my breakdown analysis articles that are released through MMA Latest. So you can find them there. Within articles will be a link to my affiliated site, mixedmartialanalyst.com, will be all the past breakdowns, which include fighter analysis and profiles for any of your future picks, curiosities, or referential needs, okay? So you can go to that to follow along. If not, or you're listening, or you're watching, or any of the above, it doesn't matter. I will be doing my best job, at least, to make sure you don't miss a beat as we compare notes here. See what we got right. We're going to see what we got wrong. We're going to see, more importantly, how it happened and how we can learn from it, okay? Whether as understanding the game in general, to your future picks or plays, or even if you're a martial artist and you're just a tech nerd like me and want to apply these things to your own game. Okay, we make notes here. That being said, you can follow me for this information, or get at me with your questions and concerns, which I will answer, on the podcast. So it'd be relevant either way. We'd like your feedback. So get at me on Twitter at the MMAnalyst. All right, or of course just follow MMALatestNews.com, because all my future articles will be there, and they are booming with visual, audio, written content. Okay, this is one of the new up and coming outlets if you haven't heard of us already. So don't be like these "I told you soers" from last night saying I knew Holm was going to win. Don't be that person. This might be the only time I say this, but be more like a hipster and just say you got on board first. Okay, so get on board now. MMALatestNews.com at MMALatestNews. All right, pleasantries out of the way. Let's jump into the technical action. Okay, again, we went 9-4 in our official picks. Not as good as the 11-2 previous week with the Belfort Henderson card, but we did mimic our score of our recommended props as we went 2 for 3 on those, which we'll talk about. We had Viante inside the distance. Hopefully you didn't need my help on that one. Whitaker by decision, a lot of people disagreed with, but we'll get to that and why it played out. This one hurt, and we'll definitely get to that. I had Struve by submission. I got excited with my correct call last week at Skelly by submission. I thought I had the same feeling with Struve. Looking at the variables, I was wrong here, and we'll definitely get to that. Again, I'm not trying to tell you where to put your money here, okay? Not trying to tell you where to make your plays, although I've maintained a positive pick record per card and overall since starting this year with a positive prop record. That being said, what's more important to me is the analysis. This is a game of inches. Anything can happen. Anybody can pick winners, okay? It's the analysis. It's the way we get to our thoughts. That's the important part. That's what will separate our understanding, our application to our plays, okay? So, again, consider me a reference point. This is as Biggie said, there's no strings attached. This is an open relationship. I won't get upset if you go anywhere else, but, feel free to stop by and check in. This is an open relationship. That way you can just share this. Feel free to share this, in fact. That's better. With anybody who it may concern who also appreciates this sort of stuff. What sort of stuff? Well, let's get to it. Let's start from the preliminary card, and we'll work our way to Rousey Holm, starting with Benoit versus Nguyen. Nguyen, first round, rear naked choke. As I said, we'll have to watch out for Nguyen's cross and left hook, as it's good as it came through last night. He hit a beautiful left cross and then a right hook. And then he showed the awareness of head movement, although the counter was not there, but still showing the awareness was beautiful, and it says a lot about his striking skill, as he did not waste that movement of set awareness to throw his two, which also landed, though cut short in the replay. This sent Benoit to the canvas. And Nguyen got his back. Now, when he got his back, there were a couple things he did really well. It was all opened up by grip fighting, okay? I love grip fighting, as we will be discussing, and as you will keep following and watching this, you'll learn that grip fighting is a form of pornography for me. I really enjoy it that much. It's so subtle. It's such a subtle technical part of the game that translates to clinch striking, the wrestling positioning, all the way to the mat, obviously, for submissions, choke availabilities. It's beautiful. He used my favorite grip when on the back, which is a cross grip. A cross grip is usually a wrist-to-wrist grip where you're taking your left hand, grabbing the same left versus your opponent, or vice versa, right to right. Now, this can be reached across your body if you're using it to get up from side control, or when people use the term cross grip when someone's on someone's back, like in this fight, it's because, let's say I'm on someone's back, I'm reaching through under their armpits, and I'm grabbing right above their wrists, forearms, getting that nice grip. Now, Nguyen does the correct side as he was committed to his right leg hook. He grabs across the body for a nice cross body control on his left. Now, as he gets his second hook in, Benoit's in a turtle position, and he uses his turtle like a lot of guys. He gets his butt straight in the air to get the guy off and forward, right? Try to dump him forward off you. It's a very common technique. Now, he also had the cage, which is even better, as guys will also use the cage as like a cheese grater, right? They want to get the guy off their back. Nguyen, seeing both of these threats, feeling him from underneath, seeing the cage in front of him, steps off with his left, keeping his said right leg hook committed. And what he did with his grip was beautiful. He switches his grip from that said cross grip and feeds it, almost like he's hugging the body for a split second, only to grab Benoit's wrist, dragging his arm across his body. So now he only has one left post to post his weight, defend, and balance himself. Very difficult for Benoit. Using that leverage, he gets his hook back in place when he feels it's safe and goes for the choke. Now, he failed on his first time, but it wasn't for lack of correct technique. He stuck with his first attempt, and that's what got it. Now, it wasn't just a first attempt at a rear naked choke, because as we've seen high-level jiu-jitsu guys continually struggle with this technique that they are really good outside the cage with. A lot of it's the gloves. The gloves is very tough. It's not their fault. It's the gloves. But there are ways to adjust it that you see some guys just frankly do better than others. Sometimes the solution is, as Nguyen pointed, so simple and violent sometimes, which is pull their head up, now their neck's exposed, and here. And you can make your adjustments, finishing so forth, okay? He tried to do that the first time. Benoit was so tough, so resilient, we've seen before, was able to fight it off. But the second time, Nguyen really gets under there. And that's all she wrote. Closes the show. Next fight, Muntasri versus Zafir. Zafir coming in last minute. Not a lot of footage, but he did what I thought, which would try to push to the cage and get his takedown, which he did. Muntasri, although kind of lacking some urgency, I don't know if he was fighting injuries with the braces, but he was showing a technical awareness in his head that he was applying stuff that he's learned at Black House through Kenny Johnson in wrestling to get back to his feet, but still showing some distance management issues to note there from Muntasri as far as getting off his game and managing the distance appropriately, whether it be through jabs or variety and shot selection of his kicks. That said, his spin kick and back fist got the finish. The only thing to note there is I want to give a shout out to Tim Lane, kickboxing coach from Extreme Couture, former kickboxing champion. You might have recognized him in Chris Algieri's corner for the Pac fight. He actually swears by this technique as he holds a couple knockouts via the back fist off it. And when I asked him, was this kind of flashy, when I first learned this a couple years ago? And he said, no, it's actually very effective. When you throw a spinning back kick, especially when you land, whether you land cleanly or they block it, there is a counter momentum. So when you kick, there's a counter momentum, right? After you hit your target, boom, it bounces you back. Now, how most fighters deal with that bounce back is they do a full turn, coming into guard, right? And in that turn process, sometimes they can be hit. That's kind of the risk of the spin in general, or coming back off the spin. So to counter that effect, and really just to counter your overall balance, a lot, especially traditional martial arts based kickboxers, more than you'll see Muay Thai or MMA guys do, off their spinning back kicks, they will throw a spinning back fist to reset the counterbalance. Now, not only does this reset the counterbalance, but it's an offensive tool. But as he spins with it here, he leaves his shoulder a little high, which is good. A little protection, just like if you're throwing a jab or a cross in boxing. Properly anyways, they want you to put your shoulder up, increase chin protection. So you counterbalance and you provide defense through offense. You are killing three birds with one stone with that, and it paid off for Muntasri, although it was arguably the initial sidekick that hurt him in the first place. But still, shout out to Tim, shout out to James, great technique. Next one up, Walsh Kennedy. Not much to say about this. Again, just a note on Walsh's fight IQ as far as staying on the bottom. Relinquishing bottom, as I noted in my analysis, the clinch would be the key junction, and he chose to clinch with Kennedy instead of hitting him with the right hand that was landing literally every time he threw it. As I stated in my analysis, he would have a good chance of doing so given Kennedy's low left guard, showing right hand availability. It was there. Walsh just didn't throw it a lot. He used a lot of his kicks to enter and would enter grappling distance and almost gave the fight away. Luckily, Kennedy wasn't too active on top. Cool little gif of them spinning randomly, too, if anybody caught that. All right. Walsh picks up the UD win. Kelly versus Montgomery. Kelly took this unanimous decision. I don't want to say I really misjudged it, because when you look at it on paper, Montgomery has more than enough skills to have taken this. But he does show that left-hand availability, which I noted. I just didn't expect the fight IQ and his availabilities to be so vulnerable as they were, which is what cost him this fight. He gets hit with a straight left off of Dan Kelly right away and fires a knee in his return to hurt him, but doesn't adjust the availability, doesn't follow up on said knee, and the momentum picks up for Kelly, who is amazing. I always love rooting for the older guys, and you can say judo might not translate too well on paper with the MMA guys, but something translates about that mental toughness, because even though I was discounting Kelly for, you could just see in his walking gait, the guy has just serious hip and knee issues. I wasn't expecting him to hold up. He did, because you can never discount a guy like that heart mentality. So congratulations, Dan Kelly. Yeah, all right. Martinez versus Vikulik. This was a crazy back and forth one. I picked Martinez, hoping that despite his wild tendencies, he would be able to reel it in. Danny Martinez, I've seen him when I've visited Alliance. Great facility, great gym, by the way. They lean heavily on Danny Martinez there. He teaches a lot of classes from all levels. He's a very knowledgeable, very friendly guy, very smart guy, but you might not necessarily get that when you watch his fighting style, because he's so wild. And as you heard, his coach is really trying to reel him in during this victory, which he earned a unanimous decision. Side note, little trivia, probably the most entertaining standout part of that fight, you heard the corner of Danny just in frustration go, "Danny, just put your elbow there, now!" Or something along the lines of that, like, just do what I say. And it kind of garnered a laugh from commentary and those watching. That was actually Eric Urasek, who taught me my first jiu-jitsu lesson, Extreme Couture. Cool little trivia. Shout out to Eric. And Alliance, congratulations, Danny. All right. Viante versus Perosh. I was in transition. I missed this one. I caught the highlight. And all I will say is that in my analysis, not only did I get the pick and the prop right, but in my analysis, I said Perosh starts off on the outside, circling to his left, which is particularly bad, allowing the fight to come to him, and circling into the power side of a right hand that he's shown susceptibilities to in recent fights, because he keeps his left hand a little low. That's exactly what happened here. Hope he's all right. Congratulations, Gian. Hopefully you can put together the consistency that it's hard to value off that fight, but hopefully he starts putting together some consistency. That's been the main criticism, because he's a definitely talented kid. All right, Sabata versus Nogue next. This one hurt me and a lot of other hardcores as far as your two people or multiple people parlays. Again, hard to value off either guy. This one ended early, although I will say, I did state in my analysis, Nogue's best weapons are his variety of kicks that he shows at distance. He'll kind of march in with them, and showed a beautiful, just power front push teep, whatever you want to classify that as. It was really nice. Hopefully, Sabata's okay. Nogue really needed the win there, so congratulations, Nogue. Hopefully Nogue's all right, or hopefully Sabata's okay. Matthews Areola next. Again, overvalued line. I warned you about this one. Hopefully people stayed away. If not, you definitely were worried in the first round, as Areola got that high kick and follow-up punches. But Matthews showed great composure. It was a great test for him. He came back, and he showed a refreshing ground and pound inside the guard. I say refreshing because whether you're inside the guard or playing guard, it's a situation that's been so nullified and stagnated for the majority of even high-level mixed martial arts matches. When you see someone just do something simply well from either end, can't help but be refreshed. Great job, Matthews. I will note, though, that in my analysis I said, back to the grip fighting, Areola possesses good grip fighting, so Jake was going to have to get him out in the open, which he did, and was going to have troubles against the fence if he didn't work on his takedowns, as he's shown to muscle him, and which he did, and that was attributed to the grip fighting of Areola. Again, it's hard to get takedowns when one of your grips being disrupted. Very, very difficult, and he does a great job at that. I do agree with the stoppage. I know it could have been kept going and cleared by other doctors. I'm not saying that part of the argument. My argument, however, is it was going to keep happening. Areola was showing the perfectly worst example of what I was talking about of seceding bottom and giving away rounds, or any criticism of closed guard, where not criticizing closed guard as a literal, but in this position where your guard's closed but your hands are active. Okay, you're counterproductive. You're counterproductive at that point. You're counterproducting your offense, and as far as the ref goes, you're better off just following suit with your hands and trying to lock them up like you are with your feet, and you can at least roll the dice that way for the ref to stand you up. Instead, your hand activity is not only allowing you to eat shots from Matthews because you weren't being effective there, but it's also convincing the ref to allow Matthews to stay there to work because you're clearly happy being there. And Areola was going to do more of the same, so it probably was a good stoppage. I'll side with it. I'll side with it. Main card, Rosholt versus Struve. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is tough. I love both guys' camps. I love both their coaches. And I don't want to unfairly criticize either guy, but man, this was terrible. They both placated to their stereotypical criticisms, whether it was Rosholt's grinding style to lackluster urgency and slowing efforts at the end with the cardio issues to Struve's definite lack of urgency and his criticism about distance control, lack of a jab, lack of activity, and Struve showed he has all the tools standing on the ground and he should have more so. He was working with a coach that I know personally well, Neil Melanson, who is like Struve, very tall and very wiry, likes the guard, likes triangle chokes, likes these type of things. So an anomaly in his own right, as Struve is an anomaly in his own right. I figured that was the perfect storm as far as preparation goes. Was hoping to see that make a difference. Did not. He didn't show so. He showed like he wanted to go for certain things, but lacked the overall urgency. He was asleep behind the wheel. Every time he threw a right hand, it landed like I predicted, as Rosholt will leave his left low off his left hooks, which has gotten hit and hurt and dropped by right-hand counters in that particular situation. And 5 out of 6 of his previous bouts before the Struve fight, it did land here. Struve just threw maybe like 3 of them the whole fight. I think he had 20 overall strikes going into the third round. Not much of an effort there. Rosholt showed more urgency in trying to get in. He showed more awareness of his defense. But the counter side of that awareness, he was also showed an awareness that he was really worried about getting hit, especially after he tasted a couple and was getting tired. He was almost uncomfortably flinching in there. Gets the decision, though. And I will say my award for the in-corner performance of the night, and definitely the performance for this fight, goes to Mark Lehman, most entertaining part of this fight. And the reason why I feel Rosholt got the win. Lehman showing his excellent in-corner adjustments, advice, and was able to get through to Rosholt, and I think was a big key to him winning. Hats off to Lehman. All right, next fight. My predicted fight of the night, which ended up being the fight of the night, which was Hall versus Whitaker. Whitaker takes a unanimous decision. Showed great looks here. As Rogan was saying, he was leaning heavily to one side as he was hooking to another to throw off distance to make dangerous entries. What added to the entries is as he would put his head off center and hook from the opposite side, is it would open an angle entry for him to come in off of a double leg body lock that it looked like he was looking for and landed in the first round. From side control, showed great jiu-jitsu to MMA conversion as he showed beautiful knee on the belly, pass pressures, and more importantly, his striking pressure. Even though he showed good ground chops, taking your eyes back, Whitaker's not known for a ground guy, but what some high-level ground guys could really look at is his striking pressure from the ground, from his side pressure elbows. His striking pressure was creating all the openings, all the transitionings, and it was really, really beautiful and spot on. It almost makes me want to see what a Damian Maia-like ground game would look like if he applied the same striking pressure Whitaker did. Hats off Whitaker. Probably helped Hall be more tentative as the bout went on. And as I said, in a close one like this, a lot of people were picking Hall because of his kicks, although I had his right hand being his best path to victory. That didn't come to fruition for him. It was the pressure game. They both are great counter fighters, but they both struggle with pressure fighters, okay? Even ones that aren't great on-paper strikers. For example, Natal's success against Hall or Court McGee's success against Whitaker, okay? And Whitaker possesses that aggressive gear in spades, and that's what I saw being the edge in this fight. so it turned out that's what was the edge in this fight. As the pick and recommended prop cashes, Whitaker by decision. Congrats, Robert. Really thought you should have got a performance of the night. Holly definitely deserved it. We'll get to her, but you beat Ronda and all that stuff. You could have gave her $1 million. She wouldn't have noticed that night. She had an amazing night. Put Kristen 50 grand. Come on. All right, next fight. Hunt versus Silva. Woo! Not much to talk about, sadly, on this one. Silva played into the narratives that a lot of people projected on him. Unfortunately, he showed very tentative, just a circle outside where Hunt chased him, and eventually scored a right hand that at first looked suspect, but then on the replay you see hits him above the head, a la Dustin Poirier getting hit with Connor's left hook. It was that same spot there. Really wiped out the equilibrium, and that was all she wrote. Always love seeing Mark Hunt, one of the best stories in sports. Hopefully he keeps going forward and has some good fights and walks away, whether it be by KO or walks away from the sport in just time. All right, next is JJ versus Letourneau. Jacek. This one I had the most notes on, okay? Jacek showed more kicks than she's ever showed, which was great because the reason why she didn't show her kicks in her MMA game initially was she was afraid of takedowns, okay, as she was taken down in the first. That said, hats off to Letourneau for that takedown. I really wish she incorporated more. She was successful in the first round. But as we'll get to as far as ground intelligence as it pertains, people were questioning, why do you consider JJ have ground intelligence? She's barely there. She clearly wants to avoid it. Why do you rate her ground intelligence so high? Well, she's not there for good reason, as I pointed out, because she'll do certain things well, whether it's her scrambling, especially against or off the cage, and her defense and underhook awareness from there, or when she actually is grounded, like we saw in this fight, she does something that I wish more people would do. She goes to a half guard, a low underhook to avoid any darce or guillotine counters, and comes up to a single leg position, which protects your head. You can bury it into their thighs and crotch area for the single leg to protect from strikes as you want to come up and sweep in reverse, or just come to a standing position, which is what Jacek chose to do. It's a very beautiful, simple, effective technique, and she goes right to it in her past fights. She did it in this one, and therefore didn't give ground a lot of play. So great job, JJ, there. Letourneau had success with kicks of her own, particularly in 3 or 4. I wish she would have stayed with those switch left liver kicks, which especially someone so tough as JJ, your liver kick's going to be the best shot. Those things don't feel good. I don't care how tough you are or how good your chin is. But they didn't pay off for her, unfortunately, though her right hand was there. Like I said, JJ, when she jabs, she will often show that body jab, and when she shows her body jab, instead of the shoulder position being up here, it gets a little lower here, and she's been countered with right hands, as we saw in her Canero and Gedalia fights. That showed to be there as well tonight. But she also showed that she did her homework, because JJ was very respectful of Valerie's right hand. She was a little more tentative than normal. That said, she was also much more technical with her feint jab. Her feint jab was very excellent. It set off her set kicks, even though she wasn't as volumatic in the punches as we're accustomed to. The clinch, I was a bit wrong. I didn't think Letourneau's overhook in the clinch would play much of a factor with JJ's beautiful framing forearm style, where she'll frame her forearms into the faces of opponents to violently rip off short elbows into it. In my defense, she didn't really show that, granted, but Letourneau did an excellent job where she would look for almost that loose Irish collar over the head, kind of like a half tie clinch grip, and she didn't look for the throw so much as she would use that to bait and reach for the overhook, because as her hand would be at that loose Irish collar position, Joanna would immediately go for the underhook here, and then she would have her underhook, which Letourneau and a lot of strikers in MMA like to use the underhook from the clinch. Therefore, they can frame, push, set up kicks, and clinch breaking strikes outside. But the clinch break was the key, though, because JJ was the one owning the clinch break. So, though Letourneau had more success in the clinch than I thought she would, it was being exclamated by JJ, and that's what I think won her a lot of the closer rounds and swung the momentum more to her side, was that clinch break striking, which we'll definitely touch in the next fight main event, but we'll get there. Okay? Let's see. She reminded me a lot of a very Jose Aldo-like approach. We saw Aldo. We saw what got him to the dance, his wild variety, his tenacity, and it won us fans, right? But we also see more technical Aldo when he wants to protect his championship, measuring, what could be underrated opponents, which I believe Letourneau was, by myself and many included. and JJ just showed great composure in the 5 rounds. Again, it comes down to sample size. The key for this fight and the next one is sample size and striking off the clinch. Now, sample size, as in we saw JJ strike against a poor performance against a girl who's not necessarily a striker in, wow, I'm drawing names, wrestler, Carla Esparza. And we saw Jessica Penne, who was game and was mentally there, but just was ill-equipped tool-wise to deal with her in the striking capacity. So we really haven't seen her challenge, and in her first 2 fights is when she was getting tagged, like I said, with the right hand availability. So I think a lot of us, including myself, were being reminded as the fight progressed, and JJ didn't get the finish, that, oh, wow, that's right. As awesome and violent as she is, I love the women's division. This is not a knock on them. This is just a fact. There is a low sample size, and you need to keep that in mind and temper your expectations of these fighters with that given, as that will play in our next breakdown. As we get to Holm versus Rousey, this one ended KO round 2. Okay, we pretty much saw emotion versus discipline here play out. Again, as I stated, Rousey gets hit with 2 to 3 straight punches in the opening 30 seconds in the last 5 to 6 of her bouts. The outlying bout, of course, being the Zingano bout, where Zingano just bum rush tackled her, and we saw the end to that. So she is hittable. But the problem was there was no sample size there for her striking, just like there was no real sample size for Holly on the ground. With that being said, I obviously went with Rousey like the majority of the world did, being that we didn't see that sample size there. Unfortunately, it didn't play out that way, did it? It reminded me almost... It was crazy because we hold Rousey so high, she's the champion, but it almost reminded me almost like when it was in a karate class coming up as a kid, and you just see someone get tagged and they get frustrated, and usually it's more juvenile, adolescent, and you don't see the adults doing this as much. They come at you, and they get a side kick right to the belly, and it stops them in the track. I've seen it a billion times, and it felt like I was watching that. That's not a knock on women's MMA. It's not a knock on Rousey by any means. I'm talking about my take on the grasp of the emotion and nature at play. That was the emotion at play. As I said in my breakdown, Ronda's an emotional fighter. It's played well for her because she's been able to out-physical and out-skill most people, but not this time. Not this time. And it wasn't the liver kick or the side kick that played like I thought, so I'm not going to gain credit to that. It was a straight left that rocked her. And as Rousey got rocked and looked to create and break space like most people do, they think they're safe. They exit range with their hands down, which I talk about a lot in my breakdowns, where clinch striking is so valuable. It's almost like a free shot, not only even a free shot, but a high percentage fight momentum changing shot, as it was, because the ones you don't see coming are the ones that hurt you the most, as Holly's left high kick was there. Very similar to Robin Black laid out. Great job, Robin, by the way. Shout out, Robin Black. And put her down. So that was that. Yeah. Remember, sample size, everybody. Sample size, okay? Let's remember that going forward. For any fights, especially in the women's division, we still got to see that. Great job by Holm. She was able to shut down some takedowns, showing a good base. That's what I want to get to before I leave this fight. That was the most disturbing part. It wasn't that Ronda couldn't strike with her. It wasn't that her game plan failed. It was that her lack of takedown variety. That's what surprised me. She went for the same types of takedowns we saw, judo-based, under, over, Uchimata, the same type of setups. We didn't see any single leg or double leg pressure. Not that I expect Rousey to start shooting power doubles like a wrestler, but at least that might change the levels and force different balance points, which will open up takedown leverages. But she wasn't chaining anything together. She was going for the same thing. I don't want to over-speculate here. I'll allow the rest of the pundits who are weighing in today and all this week about it. That's my technical take on it. We'll reflect more on their next upcoming fights, whether it's against each other or so forth, and so be it. Until then, please, hopefully this is helpful to you. Give me your feedback. Again, follow me on Twitter at @TheMMAnalyst. Stay tuned to MMALatestNews.com. My future breakdown articles will be coming up this week for Gastelum versus Neil Magny. So many coming out. So stay tuned, and I'll be doing follow-ups here if you guys like it, where I follow up and hold myself accountable for the analysis, right? What's the fun? Anybody can talk crap. I'm actually going to break it down, and we'll hold ourselves accountable for it. So hopefully you liked it. Hopefully I didn't do too bad of a job. Hopefully my falling back wall behind me wasn't too distracting. And I'll look to see you guys next week, okay? Still then, enjoy the fights, stay safe, and protect your neck. Follow MMALatestNews.com for future articles. Thank you. Signing out. Peace.